Okay, guys, it's been a long awaited project, but I finally finished with the three Yeet books. And I will be making one extra special book, but that's besides the fact. So grab your popcorn, grab your blankets, grab your drinks. I'm sorry this is going to be a vertical long form video, but get ready to hear an awesome story. Chapter 1 Introduction. One day, a kid named John was playing with his plushie that he called Yeep. Yeep was John's favorite plushie. John would play with Yeep every single day. One day, John was going on a road trip to Florida. As John was packing his clothes into his suitcase, he forgot about Yeep. Halfway through the trip, he realized that he forgot Yeep, and at that point, it was too late to turn back. Back at John's house, Yeep came to life, and when Yeep was walking around the house, he saw something that caught his eye. When Yeep went to go check it out, he realized that it was a portal. Yeep jumped in the portal, and when he came out of the other side, it closed behind him, and Yeep was forever trapped inside of the portal. Yeep looked around and saw he was in a suburb, but it was all made out of wood and pillows. Yeep said, "What is this place?" He was confused, and Yeep also realized he was the only one. Yeep took a look around and found a green house that had what looked to be portal frames inside. When Yeep turned to his left, he saw a huge kitchen and was excited for all the food. When Yeep was cooking, he saw something run by and up the stairs. Chapter 2 The Other. Yeep walked over to the staircase and went up the stairs and saw what appeared to be another Yeep. But Yeep was confused because this Yeep was all black and he was blue. When Yeep walked up to the other, he asked, "What is your name?" Yeep didn't get a response. All he heard was static. When Yeep started to walk down the stairs, he heard footsteps behind him. And when he turned around, the other was gone. Yeep said, "Where did you go?" But when he was about to go investigate, the oven went ding, and Yeep ran downstairs and got his batter out to make his cake. Right before he was going to sleep, he heard a hello. Yeep got scared and looked out the window and saw Pink Yeep. He jumped out of bed, and right before he ran out the door, he saw the other. It lunged at the other Yeep, turning it into a big cloud of cotton. Yeep got scared and ran back up to his bed and tried to sleep. In the morning, he was trying to stay away from windows so the other didn't see him. Chapter 3 The Friend. When Yeep was looking for coffee, he saw another blue Yeep walking around. He ran outside and pulled him inside. The other Yeep said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, get your hands off of me." Yeep said, "Sorry, it's just that there's something out there that is evil and I don't want to lose another Yeep. My name is Fuzzy, by the way." Yeep and Fuzzy shook hands and explored the suburbs further. Chapter 4 Exploration. When Yeep and Fuzzy walked outside, Fuzzy asked, "This place looks empty. There's only one house. Do you want to build more houses?" Yeep was unsure at first, but then agreed. When Yeep and Fuzzy were planning how they were going to build the houses, Yeep said, "Where are we going to get the wood and paint?" Fuzzy was confused at first and said, "Do you not have any?" Yeep had a disappointed look on his face and said, "No, I don't even know how to get it." When Yeep and Fuzzy were thinking about how to get wood, Fuzzy saw something red out of the corner of his eye and said, "Hey Yeep, what is that?" as he pointed to the glowing object. "I don't know," Yeep said. Yeep and Fuzzy checked it out and saw it was labeled TechWeb. Fuzzy and Yeep saw a tag that said free, and Yeep pulled it and two bubbles appeared on his belly, one with wood and the other being empty. Yeep said, "We found wood! We can build now!" Fuzzy was excited until he looked back at the TechWeb and told Yeep, "There's paint, but it costs money." Yeep was disappointed and said, "It kind of looks like a button."
Yeep had an idea and shouted, "Butt coin!" "What are you talking about?" Fuzzy said. Chapter 5, The Butt Coin. Yeep said, "The money should be called butt coins because they look like buttons and they're coins." Fuzzy smiled and said, "That's a great name and all, but how are we going to find these butt coins?" "Check behind stuff and in stuff," Yeep said. "Okay," Fuzzy said while running off. While Yeep was running toward the house, he saw the other headed towards Fuzzy, and neither Fuzzy or the other knew. Fuzzy stood up with the butt coin and yelled, "I found one!" Fuzzy saw the other, and the other saw Fuzzy. Fuzzy ran as fast as he could. The only thing Yeep could do is watch, because if he got too close, he knew he might die. Yeep couldn't see Fuzzy because he was behind a short wall, but he could see the other lunging at Fuzzy. Yeep couldn't look, so he turned away. Chapter 6, The First. What Yeep thought was the end of Fuzzy was very wrong. It was only the beginning. When Yeep turned back around, he saw Fuzzy and another Yeep, but not the other. When Fuzzy and the other Yeep walked over to Yeep, Yeep asked, "Who are you?" And the other Yeep looked at Yeep and said, "I'm Cain, the first ever Yeep. When I got here, there was nothing." Yeep looked at Greenhouse with a shocked face and said, "So you built that?" Cain looked at Yeep and nodded his head and said, "Yes, I did. I even built the kitchen." Now that there were 3 Yeeps, Fuzzy, Cain, and Yeep, there was only one thing left to discover. Fuzzy was mad at Yeep, and Yeep realized and said, "Why are you mad at me?" Fuzzy just huffed and walked away. "Hey!" Yeep shouted in anger. Cain asked Yeep, "So what are you and Fuzzy building?" Yeep looked back at Cain and said, "Well, we were building a house, but then we needed paint." Cain reached out in front of his belly, pulling out a rainbow paintbrush. Then Cain handed the brush to Yeep and said, "This is a brush never found before. You can choose whatever paint color you want." Chapter 7, The Separation. Yeep and Cain both thought that Fuzzy went back into the greenhouse, so they both looked around the house, but they could not find Fuzzy at all. 2 hours later, Cain and Yeep gave up. They could not find Fuzzy at all. Yeep got scared and asked Cain, "What did you do with the bleep?" Cain looked confused and said, "What is a bleep?" Yeep realized he didn't make sense and said, "It's a black Yeep." Cain realized and said, "Oh, that thing? I beat it until it turned into a big cloud of cotton." Yeep was relieved because he thought that Fuzzy had died. While Yeep and Cain were looking for Fuzzy, they heard a soft hello. When Cain heard it, he whipped around and went to go check it out. He asked this pink Yeep what his name was, and the pink Yeep simply replied, "I'm Jack, but you can call me Trass." Right after that, Yeep yelled from the greenhouse, "Guys, come here!" Both Trass and Cain ran to the house, and there they saw it. One of the portal frames was lit, and it said, "Adventure." Yeep said, "Now I don't know if this is safe, so we're going to have Trass go first." "What? Why?" Trass yelled. "Because you just got here," Yeep said. Cain looked at both Trass and Yeep and said, "If y'all aren't going to do it, I will," Cain said, pushing both of them out of the way, jumping in the portal. Chapter 8, The Portal. Cain flew out of the portal on the other side, landing in a kingdom. And when Cain walked up to the entrance, 2 gnomes blocked it, and one said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, we can't just let you in. Why do you want to enter?" Cain looked at the gnome and said, "I lost my friend, and I think he's in here." The gnome laughed and said, "Do you think or do you know?" "I think, no, I mean I know," Cain said. "Let's throw him off," one of the gnomes said. "What? No. Both of the gnomes grabbed Cain and pushed him off the bridge into water. Sploosh! Cain could barely stay on the surface of the water. Right before he was about to lose consciousness, he got pulled out on the shore, and all Cain could see was the black outline of a Yeep. When he looked closer, he realized it was Fuzzy. "Fuzzy?" Cain yelled. Back at the greenhouse, Yeep and Trask were waiting for Cain to come back. Trask said, "Does he usually take this long?" "I don't know. This is the first time." Right after Yeep said that, Cain and Fuzzy came out of the portal, and Yeep said, "Cain, why are you so wet?" "It's a long story," Cain said. Chapter 9, The Pets. After Cain told Yeep and Trask what happened, Trask heard a bark and then a woof. When Trask ran outside, he saw 2 dogs running from the construction site. He yelled inside, "Guys, why are there dogs out here?" Everyone ran outside, and Yeep asked Cain, "Have you seen dogs here before?" "No, the only animals I've seen were birds, but I killed them for food." "Wait, so have you seen chickens before?" Fuzzy said. Cain said, "Chickens? No, why?" "So what's in the fridge, in the kitchen?" Fuzzy said. Fuzzy finally realized and had an idea. "What if we make food for the dogs so we can make them our pets?" While everyone was cooking different meals for the dogs, Trask walked outside through the side door and he fell into a hole. Chapter 10, The Hole. When Trask stood up, he looked around and realized it was a very dark and abandoned underground mall. Trask was scared and yelled and yelled. Luckily, Yeep was walking out to go to the dogs and heard Trask. When Yeep finally pulled out Trask, Trask ran to Cain and asked if he built the underground mall. "Underground mall?" Cain said, confused. Cain hadn't ever heard of an underground mall before. When they all eventually gathered around the hole, the ground started shaking and the opening to the hole widened, and they all jumped in and explored. All of a sudden, all of the lights turned on, and they all saw multiple tech webs that had helpful items. While they were exploring, Yeep saw something at the very end, and everyone followed behind him. When they got about halfway, the light shut off, and they all turned around and started running towards the entrance. The sound of static filled the cave, and Yeep realized what it was and ran back toward the end, and so did Cain and Trask, but Fuzzy could not hear it. When Fuzzy realized what was happening, it was too late. Fuzzy got thrown at the wall by the other. When Fuzzy got up, he was grabbed and eventually squeezed until he turned into a cloud of cotton. The others ran through the teleporter and ended up behind the other. And then they all ran into the greenhouse and hid. Chapter 11, The Loss. When Trask, Yeep, and Cain finally settled down, they realized what happened. "Fuzzy's dead. I thought you killed Empty, Cain," Yeep said. They all were sad, and Cain had an angry expression and said, "We need to find what that thing is and kill it." "Yeah, let's do it." "That thing needs to go down," Yeep said. They all went outside to find tools and armor. While exploring, Yeep found something. It was a pillow bat. When Yeep picked it up, he yelled, "I found a sword!" "That's awesome," Trask said. Yeep, Trask, and Cain all moved to the house where they gathered all their armor and food to fight the other. "That thing is going down. We're going to kill it today," Yeep said. They all appeared mad, and they were on the hunt for the other. Yeep looked at Cain and said, "Do you know what that thing is called?" Cain turned to Yeep and said, "It's called..." Chapter 1, Empty. "It's called Empty," Cain said. Yeep looked at Cain and said, "Oh, that's kind of a boring name. I was expecting it to be a cooler name." "Well, I don't care what it's called. We just need to kill it," Trask said. They all put their hands in the middle, and Cain said, "Yeeps on me, yeeps on 3, 1, 2, 3, yeeps!" They all yelled. They didn't realize this at first, but that lured Empty towards them, and that was just what they needed. "There he is!" Yeep yelled as they all charged Empty. Yeep got thrown to the greenhouse. Trask almost got stepped on, and Cain got thrown up in the air. But when Yeep thought they were going to lose, he remembered the pillow bat. Yeep grabbed the pillow bat out of his belly bubbles and ran towards Empty. jumping in the air, and he brought the bat down, splitting Empty in half. Chapter 2, Gnome Overload. A week after Yeep killed Empty, he heard a person say, "Hi," but when they went outside, they didn't see a Yeep. What they did see was 10 or 12 gnomes going into the cave. "What are they doing?" Yeep said. Even Cain looked confused and said, "I don't know, I haven't ever seen this before." They waited 5 minutes until they checked it out, and when they did, they found that the gnomes turned the abandoned underground mall into a regular underground mall. Yeep looked around and let out a whoa. When Trask walked up to a gnome, it said, "You're not supposed to be here." After Trask talked the gnome out of not letting them in, Yeep saw a room, so he went in. Whoa. There are pets we can buy? And there's a cage with a key? After they got out of the secret shop, they kept building the other house. Chapter 3, Blue House. They finally finished building the blue house, and they added a secret room in case Empty somehow comes back. Now that there were 2 houses, they thought that there might be more Yeeps coming. Trask said, "Do y'all want to build another house?" Yeep and Cain looked at each other and then back at Trask, and Cain said, "Yeah, sure, but not right now." When the 3 Yeeps were asleep, the sound of warping started. Yeep woke up from the sound and went to check it out. He saw a portal opening, and when he was about to enter it, it released a big shockwave, throwing Yeep out the door and onto the sidewalk. When he got up, he checked that the portal was lit, but it didn't have a name. The next morning, Yeep noticed something he didn't notice last night. He looked at the base of the portal, and there were black handprints walking all the way to the bottom of the stairs. Yeep ran up the stairs and got Trask and Cain up. After they got up, Yeep pulled them to the handprints, and Trask said, I thought we killed Empty." Yeep, Trask, and Cain all looked scared, and Yeep turned to Cain and said, "Are there more of what Empty was that you're not telling us about?" Cain looked confused and said, "No, I promise there are no more of whatever Empty is." Chapter 4, The Watcher. Yeep and Trask were trying to figure out how the handprints got there. Cain saw something that scared him. Guys, what is that?" Cain said while pointing to the top of the blue house. "What are you talking about? There's nothing even there," Trask said. When Cain looked back, he saw that it was gone. Cain pulled Yeep and Trask to the side and said, "I don't know what's going on, but I saw a black Yeep, not like Empty though, watching over the top of the blue house, and I think those are its handprints." "Oh no. Last night, I got pushed by the portal shockwave, and when I hit the sidewalk, I looked up and saw the same thing you just described peeking its head out of the top window. I got so scared that I jumped up and ran upstairs." Yeep got mad and grabbed the pillow bat, running outside and tried to find whatever it was. Yeep ran up to a gnome and asked, "Have you seen anything weird or out of place or a black Yeep?" The gnome replied with, "No, but my friend was in the shop next to me last night. Also, the whole shop started shaking, and a big shockwave hit, and him and his whole shop just disappeared." Just as they were talking, Yeep saw the black Yeep walking towards him slowly, and then it started running at him. Yeep pulled the pillow bat up and started charging at it. Poof! It died. Fuzzy had a dagger that was pierced into the Watcher and said, "Hey, Yeep." Chapter 5, Fuzzy. I thought you died," Yeep said. "No, just let me fill you in on what happened. When I got squeezed, my arm popped off, and that's why the big cloud of cotton formed. And when y'all went through the portal, it chased you guys, and I had a chance to crawl to safety. And my eye is like this because it scratched my eye," Fuzzy said. Now that Fuzzy filled in Yeep on what happened, Yeep had to tell the others that Fuzzy was alive. Guys! Fuzzy is still alive!" Yeep said. Cain and Trask looked at each other, and Trask was confused and said, "What? That's not possible. We literally saw him die." Right as Trask said that, Fuzzy walked in, and Cain and Trask's mouths both dropped. Yeep had an idea. He looked around and said, "We need to find stitching, cotton, and wood, and that rainbow paintbrush." Yeep worked on making Fuzzy a fake wood arm, and when he finished, it looked seamless. It didn't even look like he had a fake arm. Yeep asked Fuzzy, "Try walking on it." Fuzzy started walking, and Fuzzy said, "It feels awesome. It feels like I never lost my arm." 1 week later, Fuzzy was making breakfast, and he saw a big meteor hit the ground far away. And they all looked at each other, and then they all went outside. Chapter 6, The Meteor. After half an hour of walking, they finally got to the meteor. "What is that?" Fuzzy said. Right as Fuzzy said that, a green arm came out of the meteor, and Yeep drew his pillow bat and said, "Show yourself, I have a weapon." And Cain turned to Yeep and said, "That was the corniest thing I have ever heard." The green Yeep slowly crawled out of the meteor and said, "What?" Yeep said. The green Yeep pulled out a laser sword and threw it at Fuzzy. But luckily, it hit his fake arm. And the alien was confused and said, "I still don't know what you're saying," Fuzzy said. The alien pushed a button on its arm and then said, "How is your arm not hurting?" Yeep looked at Fuzzy's wood arm and turned back to the alien and said, "It's fake. He lost his arm, so we made him a fake one." The alien pulled out a spray bottle and sprayed it on Fuzzy's arm, and his arm slowly started to grow back. Fuzzy said, "Whoa." The alien said, "I don't have much time left because I only have a certain amount of oxygen on this planet." The alien gave them all tools, and the alien gave Yeep a glowing green shard and said, "This is a crystal that opens any portal you choose." Yeep got excited and ran all the way back to Greenhouse and to the 3 portals in the living room and opened the other 2. And the first one said "Prop Hunt," and the other said "Pets," and the last one started to shake, and suddenly the portal exploded and left the whole house smoking. And when they went in, they found a basement that wasn't there before. They went into the basement, and they found a red portal frame. Yeep pulled out the shard and lit the portal. The portal said, "Enter if you dare." Fuzzy looked at Yeep, Trask, and Cain and said, "We don't know what will happen in there, or if the portal will close behind us. So I say we get more equipment like weapons and armor." They all agreed, and an hour later, they had enough tools to enter. Chapter 7, Near Death. When they came out of the portal, they realized they were in a scary house that was very dark. When they walked into the hallway, a roar echoed in the whole room. They realized this was not going to be easy. They still didn't realize what it was until Trask saw a key on the table and said, "Guys, what does this key go to?" They all looked scared, and when they wanted to go back, they realized the portal was gone. Yeep said, "Maybe if we win, the portal will reappear." While walking around, they saw the door, and when Yeep went to put the key in the lock, Fuzzy saw a bear turning the corner and said, "Guys, we have to run." When they got to a safe spot, they waited until the bear was gone. When the bear finally left, Cain turned the key and the door swung open. And in the room, it looked like the back rooms. And Trask saw a big 4-legged beast. And Trask said, "Is that my father?" And when they looked around, trying to look for the key, they found the door. But this door had a keycard reader. While they were looking at the door, Trask turned around and the father was standing there. They all started running, but realized they were missing someone. "Fuzzy!" Yeep said. "Fuzzy's missing!" "What?" Trask said. "Fuzzy isn't here!" Yeep said. They decided to make a loop, and right there lay the dead body of Fuzzy. Chapter 8, The New. When they finally got out, they saw a pink and blue Yeep looking around. Yeep walked up to them and said, "Who are you guys?" The blue Yeep responded with, "I'm Leviathan, and that is Fluffy Butter." "Hi guys," Yeep said. When Yeep turned around, he saw an orange house and asked, "When did this get here?" Fluffy Butter responded with, "Oh, that was us. We were bored, so we built another house." When Kane and Trask came out of the basement, they walked up to Leviathan and Fluffy Butter, and Kane said, "Did you guys build that orange house?" "Yes, we did," Leviathan said. "Our friend Ducky should be coming soon," Leviathan said. As Leviathan said that, Ducky walked over to Kane and said, 6-7! Kane looked at Ducky, and Ducky looked at Kane. And Ducky said, "What? All I did was 6-7! Leviathan face-palmed. And Fluffy Butter said, "Hey! No, 6-7!" while pushing him. Fluffy Butter said, "Sorry, he always says 6-7, and it's really annoying." Kane looked disappointed, and they all moved to the orange house and saw a bunch of portal frames and one that was lit that also had a keyboard connected to it. Fluffy Butter turned to them and all said, "Type in Fluffy Butter." Chapter 9, Fluffy Butter. After they all typed in Fluffy Butter, they jumped in the portal and saw a whole world, and Fluffy Butter said, "Welcome to the Fluffy Butter community world. Instead of living out there, you can now live in here." Yeep, Trask, Kane, Leviathan, and Ducky were all happy, and Ducky said, "Did you build a house for all of us?" Fluffy Butter looked at them and said, "Well, I didn't build a house for all of you, but most of you, like Leviathan and Ducky." "What? So you're telling me we did so many adventures, found new Yeeps, and lost friends just to not have a house?" Kane said angrily. "Well, you can live in the stores," Leviathan said. "No, we have a better chance living on the streets than in a store," Kane said. Yeep, Kane, and Trask all got mad and left the world. Fluffy Butter, Leviathan, and Ducky all looked at each other, and Ducky said, "Should we build them a house?" "I don't know. They seem pretty mad, and it might cheer them up, but where are we going to build it?" Fluffy Butter said. "What if we get rid of the music studio and turn it into an apartment for them?" Leviathan said. Back at home, Yeep, Kane, and Trask all were mad, and Yeep said, "I knew we couldn't trust them." Little did they know, Trask's evil side was slowly starting to creep out. Later that night, while they were all sleeping, Fluffy Butter, Leviathan, and Ducky each picked up one of the Yeeps and took them to the community world and set them in each of their apartment rooms. In the morning, when they all woke up, Yeep said, "What? Where am I? Is this a hotel room?" When Yeep walked outside his door, he saw a zip line, and he realized he was on the 3rd floor. And little did they know, Yeep was afraid of heights. And then Yeep screamed as loud as he could, "Ah!" When Yeep yelled, it woke both Trask and Kane up. When Kane opened the door, he looked up and saw he was on the 2nd floor and said, "Yeep, it's okay. Here's a zip line." Yeep was scared and said, "I don't know what you're saying and how to." Trask looked out his door and said, "Just grab it, Yeep." So Yeep grabbed the zip line and flew past the floors, landing on the 1st floor. Chapter 10, Void. When Yeep, Trash, and Kane finally got out of the apartment, Yeep walked up to Fluffy Butter and said, "We don't like it here. Why did you move us here?" "Because y'all said that y'all wanted a place to stay, so we gave y'all a place to stay." Trash saw a black Yeep run into the building studio, and Trash said, "What is that?" Something just ran into the building studio. All ran to the building studio, and when they opened the door, they saw Fuzzy pinned to a cross in the middle of the room. Yeep ran up to the cross and started banging on the cross and said, "Come on, Fuzzy, come on, you need to wake up." As Yeep turned around and yelled, "Help me get him down," while crying. Trash and Kane walked up to Yeep and each put a hand on his shoulder and said, "It's too late. He's already dead. There's nothing we can do." Void came out from behind the cross, and Yeep tried to punch Void, but all Void did was just push him back. Yeep fell over, and Void slowly dragged the cross outside and behind the building studio. Yeep ran right after them, and as he turned the corner, they were gone. Chapter 1. Valentine's. 1 year later, when Fluffy Butter woke up, he went outside and saw that everything was pink, and there were hearts everywhere. When Fluffy Butter went through the portal, he saw that everything was decorated like Valentine's. When he walked to the greenhouse, he saw a new clothes shop, and when he looked at one of the stores, he saw a gray hoodie and bought it. When Fluffy Butter went back through the portal, he woke everyone up and gathered them to the center and said, "Do y'all like my new hoodie?" Ducky said, "How did you get that hoodie?" Fluffy Butter led all of them through the portal and showed them how to buy cosmetics. Leviathan bought the gray hoodie also, and Ducky said, "Copycat," as he bought the Plague Doctor outfit. Yeep bought cool guy glasses. Trash bought purple glasses and a phone zipper, and Kane bought a mustache. When they went back into the portal, everyone went into Yeep's room and saw how much of a mess Yeep's room was. Chapter 2. Messy Room. Trash said, "Tomorrow we're going on an adventure." Yeep got excited and said, "Yay, we haven't gone on an adventure in a long time." Kane looked at Yeep and said, Yeep, we all came to an agreement and said that we think you need to stay here and clean up your room. It's a mess. You can't even see out the windows." Yeep was sad and said, "You know what? Fine. I'll clean up my room, and I'll make it the cleanest, nicest room you have ever seen." The next day, when they all went on an adventure, Yeep got to work. First, he put all the junk in the boxes, and then he took the boxes outside and went back upstairs to his room. Then he took the cans and laundry and threw the cans away and put the laundry in a washing machine. When Yeep went back into his room, he started to move things around. First, he moved his bed to the middle of the wall. Then he bought a drawer and put it to the left side of the bed. When they got back, Trash and Kane were jealous because Yeep's room was so nice and organized. 1 week later, Yeep woke up in the middle of the night. The whole world was shaking. He explored all of the world he was in, and then went into home. And what he saw was incredible. When he looked out the door, he saw 10 Yeeps talking and buying stuff. When they laid eyes on Yeep, they ran to him. Yeep tried to escape, but they all eventually tackled him and knocked him out. Later that day, they all woke up and realized Yeep was missing. Chapter 3. Missing Yeep. They looked all over the community world and found nothing. Fluffy Butter said, "Why don't we go check out home?" They all agreed and jumped through the portal. They all saw the Yeeps, and Leviathan said, "Whoa, there's so many Yeeps." And when they were looking around for Yeep, they saw his phone badge, and Trash picked it up and said, "He's in trouble. I can feel it." Kane looked at Trash and said, "What is it with the corny lines? I swear." Trash looked at Yeep and said, "You're just mad." No. Trash looked at Kane and said, "What?" While they were looking around, Yeep was in a dark room tied to a chair, and a Yeep slapped him and said, "Who are you and where did you come from?" Yeep slowly opened his eyes and said, "I'm Fitzgerald. I come from Mars." The other Yeep turned to his partner and said, "I can't tell if he's telling the truth or not." His partner turned to him and said, "You're joking, right?" No," the Yeep said. Yeep fell back asleep, and when he woke back up, he was back in the community world and said, "What happened?" Trash turned to Yeep and said, We were walking around, and all of a sudden, Ducky fell through the ground, falling down a huge flight of stairs, landing in front of the Yeeps holding you hostage. And when we jumped down into the hole, we saw the Yeeps, and Kane heard the wall rumbling, and the Yeeps looked at us, and then at the wall. Empty broke through the wall, tackling both of the Yeeps that were holding you hostage and dragging them back through the hole that he made. And then we grabbed you and took you back into the community world before Empty could get us. Oh, but you just said that you saw Empty, right? Trash looked at Yeep and said, "Yeah, why?" "Yeah, what? Oh no." All of a sudden, the apartment started to shake and then rumble. And they saw a big, scary shadow on the wall, and then growling. And then out jumped a brown pug that had the cutest bark. "Are you kidding me?" Kane said. "Oh yeah, that's Douglas, my dog," Leviathan said. Chapter 4, Fluffy. When they all got back from an adventure, Ducky saw a baby Yeep and said, Guys, whose baby is this?" The baby looked up and said with a really deep voice, "I'm Fluffy, Fuzzy's baby. Alright, goo goo gaga." Leviathan was surprised and said, "This is not fair. How does a literal baby have a deeper voice than me?" Fluffy Butter looked at Leviathan and said, "He has a deeper voice than all of us." Fluffy then looked at Leviathan and said, "Yo, you an unk, that's why." Leviathan looked at the baby and said, "How old are you?" Fluffy looked at Leviathan and said, looked at Leviathan and everyone else and said, "Yo, I'm 2 months old, cuzzo." Kane facepalmed and said, "First we have corny lines, now a baby that sounds like he's 20. Fuzzy looked at Kane and said, "Wait, so is my dad dead or what?" Yeep was sad to say this, but he said, "Sadly, yes." Fluffy looked at Yeep and said, "Yo, give me a bucket." Trash handed him a bucket, and Fluffy said, "Gotta pour one out for the homies." Everyone's jaw dropped. "What the freak?" Leviathan said. Ducky turned to Fluffy and said, "Wait, where's your mom?" Fluffy said, "Oh, her? Yeah, she abandoned me when I said my first word." "What was your first word?" Fluffy Butter said. "Oh, my first word was goo goo gaga, cuzzo." Every time they turned their back on Fluffy, he would do dangerous stuff. "Get down from the top of studio," Fluffy said. Fluffy Butter said. Okay, Fluffy said as he jumped off. Fluffy Butter dove for him and caught him. Don't ever do that again. Fluffy looked at him and said, I'm just a baby. What can I tell you? I do dangerous stuff. The next day, they could not find Fluffy at all. They searched the secret rooms hard to get to, and even in and on things, but they just could not find Fluffy. When they yelled Fluffy's name, he came out from Fluffy Butter's house. Where were you? Yeep said. Oh, I was on the playground, Fluffy said. Chapter 5, Control. As they were walking around, they saw a portal, and Trask jumped. As they were walking around, Trask saw a portal and went off path and jumping in the portal. Without anyone around, jumping in the portal. When Trask came out of the other side, he realized that he was back in the real world, but he was a human. What the? Trask said. He saw a computer and walked up to it and started typing and coding. Back in the Yeeps world, everything started shaking. The ground, the sky, the houses. Then out came Trask, but he was different. He had a lot more power. He unclenched his fist, and there was a glowing blue orb. Fluffy said, Oh, heck nah, I'm out. Have fun, cuh. Trask lifted up his hand and threw one down to the ground, and a big explosion threw them in all directions. Yeep said, We need to get over to that lobby board and get out of here. After they made a plan, 2 more flew at them, throwing them in all directions again, and Leviathan and Fluffy Butter got flung towards the lobby board, and they left. Yeep, Kane, and Ducky tried to get to it, but they just couldn't. Ducky looked at them and said, I don't know what happened to Trask, but we need to take him down. They all ran to Trask and 2 more this time, sending Kane flying towards the board. Boom, he left. Now that it was just Ducky and Yeep, Yeep jumped on top of him while Ducky held Trask's arms. And Yeep said, How are we going to take him down? How are we going to take him down now? Woo! Woo! They heard 2 barks. Woo! Woo! Outran Douglas, leaping in the air, biting Trask on the arm. Then followed by Douglas was hundreds of dogs, all fighting Trask. An explosion, killing multiple dogs. But not enough. All the dogs tackled Trask, letting Ducky and Yeep escape. But when Ducky turned around, he saw Douglas following him. And when he saw Trask charging up about to kill Douglas, out came Fuzzy, covering Douglas. But Fuzzy looked so bad. He had stitching ripped out, and he was missing both arms and was on the verge of dying. An explosion, sending Douglas flying, killing Fuzzy. Douglas landed in Ducky's arms, and they all left, joining a private server. Chapter 6, Trask. When they all were in a private code, they hid in many different spots, and 3 minutes later, Trask joined, but this time he had a glowing green orb instead of a blue orb. When he threw the green orb, it was a bigger explosion, and this time there was acidic gas that would dissolve any Yeep instantly. Douglas barked, and Trask flew over to the sound and threw an orb, exploding the house instantly. Leviathan and Douglas had to escape, and when they found a new spot, they all saw someone walking towards Trask. Look, it's Empty, Ducky said. Trask turned towards Empty and threw one at Empty. It missed Empty, and Empty leaped at Trask, tackling him out of the sky. And when Trask was about to kill Empty, he charged up, and when Empty was about to kill Trask charged up a green orb. They both exploded, leaving a big green cloud. When the cloud cleared, Trask was looking at the hole in Empty and realized he was slowly dissolving. But when he looked at himself, he realized that he was dissolving too. Just when they were about to get found, Fluffy Butter had an idea. What if we leak the code? Just a few seconds later, 17 Yeeps joined, all fighting Trask. Then Yeep, Kane, Leviathan, Fluffy Butter, Ducky, and Fluffy all jumped into the fight. An explosion. Then another one. They just needed 2 more people to kill Trask. Then, when they got in position, they were right. They just needed 2 more people. Music started coming from the orange house, and then 2 Yeeps came out of either side, one wearing a chicken costume and the other wearing a reindeer hat. They both yelled, "Get him!" As they charged, they both jumped into the air, flying down, finally killing Trask. "Who are you?" Milk Nugget said. "Who are you?" Fluffy Butter said. They both looked at him and said, "We're Milk Nugget." Chapter 7. Milk Nugget. "Well, who is who?" Fluffy Butter said. The one with the chicken costume said, "I'm Nugget and my brother is Milk." "Oh," Fluffy Butter said. Fluffy Butter invited them into the community world, and they all got to work building them rooms in the studio. Back in the real world, Trask got so mad and realized that he is in control of the entirety of Yeeps. So Trask brought himself back to life, and he put the headset back on. Before he entered the Yeep world, he looked at where they were by a tracker. When he saw that they were in Fluffy Butter's community world, he powered his headset on, going into the Yeeps world. When they all left to go find a wizard, Trask entered the community world looking for them, but he just couldn't, so he gave up and went back home. When he was mad that he lost them, he realized that he had two options. One, track them down and destroy the map they were going to, or 2, track them down and destroy them. He took off the VR and looked at the tracker to see where they were. As they were walking through a cave, Kane heard a beep, and then a few seconds later, another beep. "Yo, fellas, he got something under his sleeve," Fluffy said. Yeep put his hand down his sleeve and pulled out the tracker and said, "Oh, so that's how Trask has been tracking us." So later, when they got deeper into the cave, he found a bat to stick the tracker to. When the tracker was planted on the bat, they kept going, looking for that wizard. When Trask got to the cave, he saw the bat with the tracker and got mad. He realized he can just delete the world because he already knows where they're going. Trask pulled the VR off and clicked the delete button, deleting the world. When they finally got there, it was just a huge wall of dirt. "Where did it go?" Nugget said. They were all confused, and when they were going to turn back, they heard Trask walking towards them, and eventually they saw his shadow on the wall. Chapter 8. Dog Army. Just as they thought they were about to die, Douglas whistled, and a bunch of barking started to echo in the cave. Trask turned around and saw not hundreds of dogs, but thousands. They all jumped on Trask and ripped him into shreds. Cotton went everywhere, And when Trask took his VR off, he realized he needed to go back in. Trask searched his entire house for a portal, and he finally found one under his bed. Trask crawled under his bed and got sucked into the portal. Now that he was in Yeeps forever, he realized that if he dies, he will never come back. When they got out of the cave, they saw Yeeps lined up like warriors, ready to fight Trask. Dirt flew out of the ground, and Trask crawled out from the hole. And when the Yeeps saw Trask, they all charged Trask, and the dogs too. Yeeps died, and 47 and dogs died too. And multiple dogs died too. They jumped on Trask and started scratching, biting, and slapping. Slowly his stitching came undone. Something's wrong with my legs. And I go like this, and then I go like that. I end up at the liquor store. Something's wrong with my legs. And I go like, Yeeps and dogs were multiple Yeeps and dogs were dead. They jumped on Trask and started scratching, biting, and slapping. Slowly his stitching came undone, and he turned into a big cloud of cotton. They thought he just went into the real world, so they looked all over, and Yeep saw a portal that said Earth. He jumped in and looked around and saw a black room with just a computer on. The door swung open, and there was John. Yeep had to lie down. John ran over to Yeep, picked him up, and said, "Yeep, I found you." Back in the Yeep world, they were wondering where Yeep went. "Where did he go? It's been 2 days," Milk said. Douglas whistled again, and this time it was only 10 dogs each. There was only 10 dogs. Each dog ran to each person, and the ones that were dead, the dogs would sleep forever on their grave. Chapter 9, The Shadow. As they all were fighting off bats in the kingdom, the ground started to shake, and a huge shadow covered the entire kingdom. The gnomes ran to their homes, and one pressed a big red button that was labeled "Press if emergency." They were all confused, and Cain said, "Oh no, he's back." Leviathan turned to Cain and said, "What's back? Because if it's that huge shadow thing, we're done for." As they said that, sirens went off, and the ground shook. What is that?" Ducky said. It started raining like crazy, then thunder struck, and 5 seconds later, lightning hit the ground. With the alarms, rain, thunder, and lightning, it really set the scary mood. One of its shadowy hands reached over a mountain, grabbing the front. Another hand slowly appeared and grabbed the mountain. It let out a huge roar. It echoed through the whole world. It plunged the other hand in the river, and then the next over the kingdom, pulling out 3 gnomes, eating them. Cain said, Guys, we need to stay quiet and move slowly. Even the slightest movement or like a regular or a pretty loud talk will draw its attention towards us. How did you survive the first time? Fluffy Butter said. Cain looked at them and said, I stayed inside, but my dad and brother went to go fight it and died almost immediately. The shadow let out another roar. And it turned towards them and saw them. Run! Cain said. Fluffy stayed behind and said, No, I ain't gonna let things try and kill us. Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing and fight for my dad. As he ran towards the shadow, it looked down and tried to grab Fluffy, but missed. He slipped, and the shadow fell into the water. He's vulnerable now. Get him! Milk yelled. Not only did the main Yeeps fight, but so did the gnomes and the other Yeeps. Sadly, the shadow was too big. It got up, stepping on many gnomes, and when they tried to escape, the shadow grabbed Fluffy, and right as he was about to get eaten, he unzipped his body and showed that he had a bomb in his belly. When he got eaten, an explosion went off. The shadow roared as loud as he could, falling over slowly, fading away. Cain looked at everyone and said, We finally killed it! After multiple years of brutal Yeep and gnome murder, it's finally dead. Just as he said that, everyone started running away. Cain was confused and said, Why are y'all running? When he turned around, he saw the shadow, but half of its head was missing. It scooped up Cain, crushing him and turning him into a big thing of cotton, eating him. No, Cain! That was my favorite, Nugget said. Milk turned to Nugget and said, I'm literally your brother. Nugget responded with, And? Chapter 10, Fog. When they got back to the community world, they saw a bunch of fog everywhere. Why is there fog? Yeep said. Just as he said that, the fog slowly formed into a Yeep. Hi, my name is Fog. You can call me Francis. I'm a girl, by the way. Francis said, I'm here for one reason only, and it's to kill that shadow. The ground shook, and out came only half of the shadow. Francis jumped into the air, forming a glowing gold ball, and throwing it at Shadow. A huge explosion went off, and now Shadow only has half a head and one arm. Shadow fell over to the ground, shaking the whole world. Francis spun in a circle in the air and became huge. Shadow jumped up and threw Francis to the wall. Shadow formed a ball of lightning, throwing it at Francis. Fluffy stepped in front of Francis. Fuzzy stepped in front of Francis and grabbed the ball of lightning, throwing it back at Shadow, killing him. He started to fade away. Fuzzy walked over to Yeep and said, Sorry I kept dying, but I have that healing gun the alien gave me, so that is how I stay alive. But I'm back for good this time. Just as he said that, a huge shadow filled the entire community world, and out came Trash. Well. If it isn't Fuzzy, I knew you would keep coming back, so I found a way to kill you for good. They all looked at Trash, and Fuzzy said, If you're going to mess with me, you're going to have to go through them first. Francis started laughing and said, Oh my god, that's the corniest thing I've ever heard. Francis got flung out of the air by an explosion, and she and she turned into fog and surrounded Trask. She turned into a huge wall of fog, and then a fist punched through the fog wall, and it was Shadow. This is what I've been working on. I got a hold of him, and now I gave him some upgrades. Now if you get eaten, there's a grinder in his mouth that will kill you for good, Trask said. Fuzzy got picked up by Shadow, and when he looked down his mouth, he realized the grinder isn't working because of the missing piece of its head. Fuzzy said, "Eat me, I dare you." The Shadow dropped Fuzzy into its mouth. Now that Fuzzy was on the inside of Shadow, he found its heart. "What is this? It looks like a ball of lightning," Fuzzy said. On the outside, they started fighting. They started fighting Trask and Shadow. And when Shadow started moving, Fuzzy was getting thrown around inside of him. Fuzzy eventually ended up in Shadow's stomach. Shadow clenched his stomach and almost threw up. And because of that, Fuzzy only got a glimpse of the dead bodies, but got flung back up to his chest. He eventually pulled out his daggers and threw them into Shadow's heart. Shadow clenched his chest, started coughing, and lost consciousness, falling over onto the ground, dying and turning into a mist. In that mist, Fuzzy came out, and they all charged Trask, eventually killing him for good. "We should make sure he's dead," Leviathan said. "Good idea." Everyone was confused, but no one said that. And out came Nathan. "Who are you?" Ducky said. "I'm Nathan, Trask's good side," Nathan said. "Wait, if you're the good side of Trask, who's the bad side of Trask?" Francis said. "Oh, his evil side is just Trask. When Trask was being nice, I was in more control. But then he got so mad when he didn't have a house that the evil side took over and started controlling."
I hope you guys liked that video. If you somehow watched it all the way through, I don't know if you did or didn't, but the video's over. Adios.
Shout out to Viking13 VR. If you ever want to meet me, I play Spleef a lot, the minigame, and also I have a friend that has 200 subscribers. So that's the reason why you might want to meet me, so you could